Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm an anti-feminist, and yeah, we're sort of a group of us who come down here to Speaker's Corner to talk about issues to do with feminism from an anti-feminist perspective. A lot of us would also classify ourselves as men's rights activists. So today I want to talk about a boy who's growing up in Britain today and what his life is going to be like, you know, based upon societal institutions, the media, the education system and social values. Okay, so one of the first things that happens in this boy's life is that this is a practice that's been going on for hundreds of years, and it's known as male genital mutilation, also commonly known as, the process that's often done is circumcision. So this process involves the removal of his foreskin, and some of the results of this can be a lack of pleasure during sex. I believe this was one of the reasons why they brought it in the middle, sort of medieval ages, was to kind of endear that, the man, that boy would become to the tribe. They would sort of, it was part of the religious indoctrination process of persuading him that it was a tribe that he had to fight for and give all of his masculinity and aggression to, and it was them who he was beholden to. And so one of the ways in which they achieved this was by reducing his pleasure during sex, so that his life became more about serving the tribe, and became more about being indoctrinated to the religion. Now, this is a practice that still continues today for boys. It doesn't at all continue today for girls. They always used to do this again in medieval times, and and it was known as female genital mutilation, and it was a barbaric practice then. It remains a barbaric practice today, and that's why they've made it illegal. However, with boys, they haven't made it illegal, and it continues, and it's hideous, and it can lead to all sorts of horrible problems. One of the basic statistics to do with male genital mutilation is. I'm saying it's illegal, and whereas male genital mutilation is legal. So they've got clinics where you can go to get circumcised if you're a boy. No, I believe it's happening. It's just illegal. I mean, there's all sorts of illegal stuff that still continues, but. So that's what a lot of religious people do, and also, it's not so much done as a cultural thing. It was back in the 50s, in the 70s. Parents would just take their boys along to be circumcised because they believed it, it would improve cleanliness, that sort of thing, and. But this is a horrible practice that can actually have a huge negative impact on that boy's sex life throughout his life. You get, I was going to say, one of the basic statistics relating to male genital mutilation is that 1 in every 10,000 boys who is circumcised dies from the operation. And in terms of it being used as a medical procedure, it's only actually effective as a medical procedure in 1 in 16,000 boys. So it's more likely to kill the boy than it is to be useful as a medical procedure for him. So that's the way we treat young boys in our society today. We allow doctors to go along with their scissors and other operating tools and to tear his foreskin off, and we say, oh, that's fine. I think it's not good because it infringes on, what it basically is it's one, it's paedophilia, and two, it's forced genital mutilation. So my basic stance on this would be, if you support male genital mutilation, then you're on the same side of the fence as Jimmy Savile and Jack the Ripper, because they were both respectively into paedophilia and forced genital mutilation. So that's why I'm against this process. But it's a horrible way in which we treat male boys today in our society. And I see the feminists going on about female genital mutilation. And one of the things that sickens me about this is, it's like, well, why not, like, you know, try and ban it for everyone? Why not actually have an altruistic way of dealing with this problem? Why does it have to be gender specific? You know, why is it, oh well, we want to help baby girls, but, you know, not baby boys. They can, you know, they can go to hell. We're just going to help the baby girls. And I just don't get this mentality. It's, you know, it takes something which could be a lovely altruistic, you know, idea, this idea of correcting an equality and actually helping people, and it just turns it into a supremacy ideal, which, you know, which is wrong. And one of the other things, I've spoken to a number of guys who are, you know, sort of anti-circumcision within that movement. Well, another thing they say is that by legalising male genital mutilation, that actually normalises female genital mutilation in religious communities. So as a tactic, it doesn't work anyway, like saying, oh well, one's illegal, whereas the other's okay. You know, or this whole, let's just ban female genital mutilation. If you were to ban all genital mutilation of baby infants, that would increase the number of, basically that would decrease the number of baby girls who are, you know, subject to this process. Because, you know, the fact that you allow male genital mutilation, in the eyes of some religious communities, normalises female genital mutilation. So that's, you know, this is one of the first things that happens to a lot of baby boys in Britain today. And I believe with sort of feminism and the feminist movement and the way it is now, it's turned into an extreme radical hate movement that goes on to affect boys and later men. And, you know, by constantly perpetuating this narrative that men are evil, that male pain is insignificant, and that, you know, it's basically we need to help women and just focus exclusively on their needs, and somehow this is going to help people, even though it doesn't. You know, Warren Farrell, probably the one of the most prominent anti-feminists. He kind of wrote one of the original books on this subject, The Myth of Male Power. He said in the gender war, if one gender wins, then both lose. And so I believe this is the case with feminism. Okay, so you know, that's the boy as a baby. He then starts going to school, and what are some of the processes that I believe feminism, radical feminism, has encroached into the education system, into the way policies are made, and that's had a detrimental impact on the boys who go into primary school. So some of the things they're looking at doing, they're looking at reducing sort of break times. And you know, this is one, like this policy in particular affects boys more than it does girls. Girls are, by and large, they enjoy break times, and it does have a positive impact for them. But the actual impact of taking away playtime for boys is colossal, and you know, what you get from that is hyperactivity. Boys who can't sit still in class because they haven't had the opportunity to run around the playground for an hour at lunchtime and also at break time. And so, you know, you get all of these boys who suddenly have ADHD or whatever, and they go, oh yeah, well, we need to start putting them all on medication. So they medicalise this behaviour. They say, oh yeah, they're being hyperactive, and you know, it's a problem and we need to sort it out. Generally, there's also this move with, and also the way it's put into policy, like that. I'd say like normal sort of boy behaviour can be quite rambunctious, and this behaviour is seen as being problem behaviour. You know, these boys who are restless, who can't sit still. It's seen as being a problem behaviour, as opposed to what would be, in my mind, a logical solution to the problem, which would be to say, oh well, yeah, you just, you know, he just needs to play more sports. You know, they just need some sort of channel to vent this this energy, and so I feel that's one of the ways in which sort of society is degenerating at the moment with regards to primary school level. We're sort of we're not giving boys an opportunity to express their normal male rambunctious behaviour. I'd say another problem we have there is a lot of male children are told it's not okay to hit a girl. Obviously it isn't, but is this a good message? Just telling them it's not okay to hit a girl. How about it's not okay to hit anyone? Or violence is a bad idea? Would that not be a better message? You know, rather than, you know, it's okay to hit other guys, but you know, you better not hit a girl, because that's it's completely out of order, and you know you can't do that, and you'll be punished horrifically if you do. I would generally have, and you know, and the other thing is they don't tell female, you know, girls, they don't tell them it's not okay to hit a boy, you know, or it's not okay to hit other girls. I would say, again, a more altruistic message at this stage would be to say, okay, violence is a bad idea, you know, just don't hit each other, and if you do, then, you know, there's going to be ramifications, or you know, you're going to be in trouble. So, you know, we have this message. Another one that male children are told is always respect women. It used to be always respect your elders, which made a lot more sense, because you know, children of that age aren't usually very wise and sage, you know, in the ways of the world. They're probably going to be a bit hot-headed, probably a bit stupid in their views and so on, because they're kids. So always respect your elders kind of worked, because you know, a lot of the time the advice of older people was quite good advice to take, and it actually helped the children, and you know, like by listening to their elders, they would develop a lot of wisdom. So I see some benefit in telling them that, but always respect women. Not so much. This is the sort of the message that boys are taught, so that it's okay to hit other boys, but it's not okay to hit girls. They're also taught at that age and later that you must be respectful to women, but there's no kind of impetus on them. There's, you know, they're not taught you must be respectful to men. Similarly, girls aren't taught you must be respectful to men, because it's ridiculous. You know, should you automatically be respectful to someone just because of their gender? I mean, it's absolute rubbish. You know, there's no. I don't feel that I should be respectful to anyone because of their gender, whether they're male, female, or whatever. You know, I feel that respect generally is it's a process that you engage in with someone else. You get to know them, you think, oh, I quite like this person. Over time you build a bond of respect with them and trust, and that's how you come to respect someone, and kind of that's how the process is. And just saying to anyone that you should just be automatically respect someone else on something as arbitrary as gender, I think is insane, and it's just a terrible idea. It's a terrible mentality to put into a young boy's head, or into, you know, a young male adult's head. But that's what they're doing. Another, you know, crazy idea that we're telling to young children now is we're imposing on them this idea of the patriarchy. So with the feminists, they have actually, you know, they feminise the education system, and they are teaching young male children and female children in primary school about the patriarchy. and that, you know, they're saying, oh yeah, you know, throughout history, men have always oppressed women, and you know, it's just because men are horrible, they've got defective male DNA, they're aggressive, they can't control their anger, you know, they're going to be horrible, and they're going to try and rape you, and that's just because of the way they are, and that's just what all men are going to do. And so you're telling that to primary school boys, and what else? You know, you're talking about all of this historical aggression, and you know, quite often they're saying, oh yeah, and it's always white men as well. It's like right throughout history, it's always been white men who have been oppressing everyone else and denigrating everyone else. And how can you tell this to primary school children? You know, the Rhodesian poet Doris Lessing, she came to the UK and she sat in on one of these primary school lessons where the teacher was giving a lesson on the patriarchy and saying to a whole bunch of 10-year-old boys and girls about how men have always oppressed women and how white men are the scum of the earth and they're responsible for everything. And you know, the 10-year-old boys in this class are sitting there and they're feeling like, oh my God, you know, we're terrible, we're absolute scumbags. You know, how have we become this way? What's wrong with us? You know, and she was saying the girls, however, were sitting there complacent, smug, you know, and she said that this looked as though it would form the pattern to which the rest of their life would adhere. And so, you know, this is one of the crazy myths that feminists have been telling to primary school children, and this continues throughout secondary school, and it's in the university system now. It's right throughout the education system. It's this mad ideological myth that all men are bastards, they're always horrible to women, and they're always going to be horrible to women, and that women are always victims to evil, violent male men. And you know, and there's nothing they can do about this victim status. They're just going to be victims, whatever, you know. And this is just a crazy reductionistic vision of history that has absolutely nothing to do with actual history. You know, if we look at actual history and we try and impose the patriarchy ideology on it, it becomes nonsense. It is a nonsense. Yeah, I mean, like if we look at, you know, actual history, what we generally see is that it's a lot of the time it's been a case of, you know, like a group violence didn't really start until after the initiation of complex society. That was around 10,000 years ago, when people started settling down in one place, and then you had the rise of the state, and you had government started springing up. And then war became I suppose, a way in which rich men and the women around them, you know, their harems, could, you know, sort of kind of vastly increase their fortunes. And the losers in all of this were poor men who went off to fight their battles to build their empires. And poor men were by and large, you know, the horrific victims of war, and always have been, you know, throughout our history. And I was reading recently that it's assumed that since I think since the rise of the state around 10,000 years ago, one source claims that around 3.5 billion mainly men have been the victims of all of these armed conflicts throughout that time. So that's a huge amount of suffering and so on that's gone on. Okay, so I was talking about the patriarchy myth, which boys and girls are educated in at primary school level, at senior school level, and when they get to university. And the fact that it's complete bunk, it's complete rubbish, and it has absolutely nothing to do with our history. And you know, it's a completely reductionistic vision of history that you know, holds no water and just frankly, you know, is inconsequential. So I mean, if we now look at some of the media images that boys see when they watch TV programs, and girls as well. So you know, what we see we have sitcoms and various drama shows, and in all of these shows, it always seems to me that the man is the bumbling idiot, whereas the woman is smart, capable, and savvy, and she puts up with him. I don't know why, but she just does. You know, whereas the guy, I mean, the most obvious example of this would be Homer Simpson, who, you know, is incredibly stupid, incredibly fat, you know, lives an absolutely, you know, is always gouging himself on donuts, can't do his job to save his life, but I know because he has some innate goodness, people like him, and it's sort of like, well, you know, okay, I can't blame drama for all of this because they're making entertainment, so you know, maybe they shouldn't be blamed as being a major sort of problem in, you know, creating sociological narratives. But I think there's a slight problem here in that, you know, this isn't just The Simpsons. This is a whole bunch of TV shows where we have this constant narrative where the guy's always an idiot, or, you know, he makes a stupid mistake, or, you know, there's some other problem with him, and I guess it's his quest to try and redeem himself somehow, so he can win the affections of the girl or the woman who happens to be perfect. You know, the woman a lot of the time is always perfect. There's no problems with her, and this is the you know, the way that a lot of men are portrayed in sitcoms, in, you know, sort of other drama shows, and in films. And, you know, it's a constantly reasserted narrative that the guy is invariably in the wrong, or, you know, he has some other major problem, whereas the woman is always in the right, and it's his job to prove that you know, he has to become a better man in order to be with her. And I'm just not sure about this whole mentality. Again, if we look at the media, we have radical feminism, and have had it since definitely since the 1960s in the media, and it's steadily gotten worse over time. So, I mean, one of the most radical feminist media narratives I've seen would be the Everyday Sexism project. This was started, I believe, 2011 or 12. And with the Everyday Sexism project, it was started with the Guardian newspaper, but they also have a vast amount of funding from feminist lobbying groups, and they get the ear of the BBC. You know, they get a whole load of political power. They've, I believe, Laura Bates, who's the lady who started the Everyday Sexism project, she's been involved in creation of domestic violence policies across the continent and here in the UK. And let's look at some of the stuff they're saying. They're creating this rape culture narrative where they're saying that basically, you know, the idea is that men use sexual violence as a tool to try and control women, and it all goes back to this patriarchy culture, or this patriarchy myth that throughout history men have always beaten, abused, raped women because they're horrible monsters, and because you know, that's what they're like. It's because of their defective male DNA. You know, this is just how they are. Whereas women have always been perfect, angelic creatures ever since the dawn of time. And you know, so that's sort of the patriarchy myth. And this goes into policy planning for domestic violence, and also issues to do with rape as well. And so the media construct this narrative where men are always, you know, basically, if they had the chance, they'd always rape a woman. And the only way to stop these men from raping women is, for instance, to have mandatory consent classes at universities that they have to go to. And it's all bunk. What we see is that since the 80s, the instances of rape have been in the UK, they've been falling, and you know, the same is true in a whole bunch of other first world nations. But I mean, also this whole idea, it doesn't really look into these problems in a whole way. For instance, with say with the idea of rape, you know, you sort of have the male perpetrator, but what you don't consider is you know, how this man's life has been since they were a kid. Were they raised in a positive environment where they had positive role models, where they were, you know, taught to I suppose to treat other people in a healthy way, or were they raised in an environment where this didn't happen, where they didn't have positive role models, where I don't know, perhaps they were, you know, the victim of abuse themselves? That this often happens. You know, you'll have a boy who is abused by, say, his father or mum, or you know, by someone else, and then what happens then when they grow up is that they start to, instead of being the prey, they become the predator, and they start to engage in the actions which were forced upon them when they were younger. And so you don't actually, rape culture, the narrative, doesn't look at the whole spectrum. Also, one of the things I hate about it is it looks at all of this microaggression crap. So I mean, it'll be stuff like I don't know. So one of the main university studies they have, and it's a 2007 study. It was done in the US, and in that study, it focused on college campuses, and they came to the conclusion that 1 in 5 women was the victim of sexual violence or was raped in US college campuses. And the way they got to this statistic was they included a whole bunch of actions that had nothing to do with rape, and they said that those actions were rape. So for instance, they had forced kissing, that they included that as an example of a man raping a woman. They also had situations where the woman had become very drunk and then had sex with a man, and then they said, oh yeah, that's an example of rape.
Not just the woman got very drunk, they both got.
Yeah, exactly. If you're that drunk, then, you know, they're both rapists, isn't it? Both parties. So I don't know, where will the madness end? You know, why don't we just send everyone to jail for it? Right, I mean, yeah, again with the feminist rape culture narrative is, what they've done this for a long time. What they do is they, like what we see with the crime of rape and reporting of domestic violence, what we see is the rates of women who make false accusations against men for rape or for domestic violence is pretty much the highest rate of false accusations for any crime. Way higher than burglary, way higher than arson, way higher than every other crime where false accusations are made. One of the best studies done on this was, I believe, it was in the 90s, and that was done by Edward Kanin, and it was in the US. And this study, the police department in a Midwestern US town, they were able to They looked at every single woman who made an accusation that she had been raped, and the police were able to follow that accusation to an actual conclusion where they worked out whether or not she was raped. And what they found out was that 40% of the accusations were false. And we see a similar thing with accusations of domestic violence. The problem is because they've created this feminist rape culture and domestic violence culture narrative, where they state that all men are demons, and you know they're just beating and raping women all the time, and that's all they're about, basically.
Who said that?
That's been the feminist narrative since the 60s.
Who? Which feminist?
Every government in the first world.
Which feminist has said that?
Well, a lot of them, like hundreds. Oh, it states that all domestic violence is a case of men beating up women, and that if it appears that the woman is the instigator of the domestic violence, it's because the man probably hurt her initially, and so that's the only reason why she did it. So it all comes back to this idea of patriarchy, and that is the reason for everything.
So they're not usually true though?
No, it's...
How can you find out if it's true?
Well, I mean, like, firstly, it's a ridiculous idea, because, it takes the whole idea of, innocence until proven guilty, and just throws that out, and that's an important aspect of our civilization, that
The
idea.
best solution is not to outlaw sex before marriage. So when something does happen, something did happen, and then you say you raped them.
It's not... Can you say that again? Sorry.
To outlaw
Yeah.
sex before marriage.
Right.
That happens when someone rapes a woman, then rape.
What about rape?
I don't know.
That's more common than rape outside of marriage.
There's divorce. The divorce is there, but there's divorce there, but it's like someone younger, someone richer. It's there as a back door. So when you do suffer abuse, you've got that right to divorce it. Which is not the right.
I'm not sure I'd go for this. I mean, like, the thing is, a lot of people won't agree with that, and they won't stick to it anyway. So, and you can't just say if two people had sex before they were married, then a rape definitely occurred, because a lot of the time it clearly wouldn't have.
It happens, you don't know that.
Right. I think laws generally, you should look at whether someone did commit a crime against someone else, and if they did, then fair enough, But
no one's having sex before marriage, and someone does rape someone.
right.
Well, that'll never happen, because in many religious societies there's always people having sex in wedlock with other people, and there's people having children out of wedlock. Humans don't tend to do that, unfortunately.
Do what?
Not have sex before they're married.
Actually, in the Muslim society, we compare the Muslims of every nation, the Chinese Muslims with the non-Muslim Chinese, the Russian Muslims with the Russian. You see their family infrastructure, their system, how they live and all that. It's like the families inside. There's no problem with rape or homosexuality or drug abuse or suicide. All this stuff doesn't occur. Like it's an abnormality. It does happen. It doesn't even can't even make it statistical. Whereas in the non-Muslim society, it makes it statistical.
Right.
You can see the numbers of it.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to sort of get back towards, generally this discussion on these issues. I'm just sort of saying that, this is a constant narrative that's perpetuated, that men are, always the initiators of, they're always the ones who are raping women, and they're always the ones who are starting domestic violence. And what we see, for instance, with domestic violence is that it's a lot more tit for tat. So, so in a lot of kind of families where it does occur, there'll often be a lot of alcohol use, there'll often be a lot of drug use, and that happens a lot. And in other relationships where it occurs, I think one of the statistics was that it was around, when they looked at it, it was kind of around 50% of domestic violence situations were where both the man and the woman were being abusive, and they said 25% of the time it was the man being abusive, 25% of the time it was the woman being abusive. So if you look at kind of situations where it's tit for tat, in that situation you can't just say, oh yeah, well, we need to just focus on the man's behaviour, because that's not going to solve anything, because they're going to have a whole bunch of agencies just looking at his behaviour and saying, oh yeah, you just need to treat her with respect or something or whatever, and then he gets back home and she's on the booze, and she starts doing whatever it is she does that absolutely grates him to the point where he loses the plot and becomes violent, or she's going to start attacking him, and then because you haven't addressed her bad behaviour, then you haven't solved the problem. And also in situations where it is one partner, either the man or the woman, who's being abusive, in those situations, what you need to kind of look at is A, the behaviour of the abuser, and B, the behaviour of the victim. And So, and they're both kind of negative behaviour. So say say you've got a woman who keeps on going back to a violent man. You can't just look at his behaviour and say, it's wrong what you're doing and stuff. You also need to, I say, have services looking at her behaviour of why she continues to go back to a violent partner. And the same is true with men who are the victims and with females who are the perpetrators. But I just think it does the whole system a huge disservice when you pretend that it's always the man, who's the perpetrator, and it's always the woman who's the victim.